Well, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Growing a Deeply Rooted Business podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about launches. It is launch season again, usually September, October, August. Everyone's trying to get those kind of like pre holiday launches set up so they can get one final push before the end of the year. And Rachel and I, if you didn't know this already, have a little bit of experience around launches. We've done
A little bit.
tiny launches, like $1,000 launches. We've done six-figure launches. And last year I had the journey experience of leading my first $1 million launches, actually $3 million launches. So today we're going to be talking about what we've seen work, what we see kind of like doesn't set your launch up for success, and kind of talk about it in both terms. If you're doing a smaller launch, if you're just starting out, or if you kind of have a big team and you're growing, I think you can learn things from both of them. So I'm really excited about this conversation because I love to launch.
Yeah, same. And it's so funny you say that about everybody's building up to launching right now. Cause like I'm in the beginning of a launch for myself for Gal. And I didn't even realize, I was like, oh my gosh, how cliche. I'm going to be launching in September. I didn't even plan that. It just felt like an organic time to launch.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, before we get into it, like one question, like what was your a launch experience that like felt really rushed and what did you
Mm. Oh my gosh. That's really hard to answer because Jess and I participate in very, very different launches. My clients launch very quietly. They launch behind the scenes, real low key. And Jess is kind of in those more orchestrated, larger, like
more
25 different
intense?
pieces. Yeah, like moving all at the same time. So for me, a lot of the more chaotic launches that I've participated in were like probably 2 or 3 years ago, where I was just, like, sitting there, I'm like, "Oh my god, this is hurting me." It, like, felt like I was pulling teeth from the audience, and none of my clients launch like that anymore, thank goodness. So I don't know, I'm not close enough to one that was like, I've pushed that trauma away, I've
Yeah.
processed.
Yeah.
What
No,
about
I can
you?
remember, I mean, I think I've definitely been in some rush launches, and I think over the years, one skill that I have learned to develop is how to support my clients and making sure that they're not getting to that end point where they have a bunch of things to do. So I was just telling Rachel before we started getting online that for the client that we had the $3 million launch last year, their launch happens in the beginning of February. We're starting to plan like right now. And I knew that for him in particular, really nailing down his strategy, like making those final decisions, that was a big bottleneck in our launch process last year of just like last minute changes and going back and changing like emails 2 and 3 times. So I really wanted to give him the time and space to like really think everything through. So rather than doing like one little bitty launch, strategy meeting, because this does have a lot of different parts. It's a boot camp. It's a masterclass that goes into a boot camp that goes into like an open cart. So to give us the time and space to think through all those like nitty gritty pieces, I've actually like laid out like 6 meetings that we're going to do over the next month where we're kind of going to break down each piece of the launch and be able to strategically talk through it with the team. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I think that layer and that, like, depth goes to show, like, that it's not just tactics, like, there is depth to launch planning and launch execution in the sense that, like, the amount of effort you put in on the forefront is going to result in the success that you end up getting out of it because it is not just tactics. Like, you can't just plan 25 stories and then show up the morning of and say, "Okay, I'm gonna record my 3 stories for the day," and think it's gonna convert. Like, does not work like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that kind of like segues into like our first kind of like first mindset that you need to embrace is that planning really isn't something that's going to be rigid. It's going to be something that's going to set you up with a really powerful foundation for your launch. And it's actually going to, and planning, when you plan farther enough in advance and you do give your space to yourself to think and really think through all the different scenarios and put yourself in your customer's shoes. Like it actually allows you to tap into your intuition. It allows you to like understand your customers more deeply And when you're not trying to do everything last minute, you're going to be able to show up like rested with like lots of good energy. Like I always try to kind of protect that week before launch is I call it optimization week, but like ideally for me, like everything for the launch is done before optimization week. And that week is really about just kind of combing through everything and about whoever is like the face of the launch having the time to like rest, reset, build their confidence where they're not showing up like all frazzled because energy sells. So I think that's like kind of one of the most important things that as like a launch project manager that I try to protect is like my clients' energy and how they're going to be able to show up during the actual live experiences.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating now that I've taken, and I want your thoughts on this because now that I've taken such a big step back from these big manufactured launches with my client, where I think if you look back to like what was being taught by launch strategists and launch people back 2 to 3 years ago, where they're saying quarterly launches, you have to show up and you have to do this. Like, if we're looking at planning as like the success make or breaker for a launch, like quarterly launches really feel too close together, right? Like, it feels very tight to have that moment of rest, the reflection, the planning, and like, what are your thoughts on
Yeah,
on
yeah, no. I mean, like I said, so this client, we do one launch a year, which it means it's a lot of pressure riding on like one, little open cart. We have some other smaller projects, but this is like our one big launch a year. And after it, the whole entire team is just like kaput, drained because we've left like everything on the table this past couple of weeks. And I couldn't even imagine turning around or like while we're in the midst of that, even though like we've done it, we've got it systemized, but there's so many like moving bits and pieces, like managing all those bits and pieces, and then also trying to like plan for the next person
yeah.
with like these small businesses. Obviously, if you have a giant marketing team, blah, 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 but like this team that I manage is like 14 people. I think there's four of us on the marketing team. It's a 14-person company. So it's still like a tiny company.
Yeah.
So I think like quarterly launches, if you're going to do like a live event, is just a little too much, maybe. It just depends on
Yeah.
like how hard and how systemized. Maybe if you're doing the exact same thing, sending the exact same emails and just tweaking out things a little bit, but I don't know. Not,
Yeah, it almost feels like the overlap is going to lead to offer confusion, and like a subscriber or buyer burnout and all of those things. But I just think it's so funny to even think about like how that was a standard practice
Mhm.
of what was being taught. And I'm like, thank goodness people are moving away from that because holy cow, that's exhausting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Where do you want to go to next? Do you want to talk about like more of the planning from the perspective of getting your ideal buyers ready and how it does take more time to like bring them from internet island over to offer island?
Yeah, I mean, I really think, and let's talk about like the ramp up, but also like starting end of launch is really when you're planning the beginning of your launch. So you have to work backwards from like essentially this person is going to be ready to buy in September or whatever. Like that's the plan. That's the ideal situation. But then we need to work backwards on all of the various points of awareness beforehand, which is where your ramp up takes place, which is when you look at like your buyer data, of how often it takes for somebody to actually convert. I just went through this in one of my new training that I'm posting about everywhere is the like ecosystem where you're saying in the initial stage of like getting somebody onto your list and like people say, okay, give them 5 emails and then hit them every single day for a week. That's not going to happen. And you have to think of your launch like from the moment you want them to take action, you have to build in that natural conversion, like buyer incubation phase. And that's when ramp up starts, is at the beginning of that phase.
Yeah, yeah. I had a client that I was supporting from like a launch, maybe like execution. I really didn't have that much strategy piece. And we launched a couple of times and like she never really got the results that she wanted. But a pattern that I would notice is that she would like launch, leave it all on the table, and then completely ghost Instagram audience, email audience. And then the month before she's ready to sell, she's back again. And I think not only that does I kind of feel like just like icky, she's only showing up for me when she wants something from me. That's like the energy it's giving. It wasn't giving even the new people that we were bringing in through that launch. So, like, a lot of times when you're launching, you're building momentum for your next launch. The people that are like finding you while you're doing all
Yeah.
like that social media push, they might not convert that time, but they're going to convert the next time. So it's really important, like, even like after a launch, to not ghost your audience, not ghost your email list because you've just brought in a ton of new people and like you're making a
Yeah.
first impression on them. And they may not have bought this go around, but if you continue to like nurture that relationship for the next couple of months, they're going to be ready. But if you ghost them and they lose trust, then you're going to have to start from scratch every single time. And you're never building up that launch momentum where you see people go from like 500,000 to a million to 3 million. Like that's not going to happen if you're not building momentum in between launches and not keeping that momentum in between launches.
That whole thing, yes. Again, I think that goes into play so much more now where we talked about this a couple episodes ago about the trust economy. And like so many people right now have to trust you in order to buy from you. And if you're like, I have a few people that I'm on their email list now where they don't email ever. And then right before they're about to launch, they start kind of like popping up with things in like that sense of feeling of like, oh my gosh, okay, she's about to like sell me something. That's not the energy you want. Like, you want excitement. You want, like, ooh, what are you going to say next kind of thing. And like, that's the energy you want to live on because it compounds, right? So, like, what Jess was saying is that maybe somebody is not going to buy this launch. But if you hold on and nurture them until the next launch, like, yes, they'll convert then. But if you just ghost them, they're not going to. And I think that that is probably one of the biggest opportunities that I see people who are launching right now completely drop the ball on is that like in between launch, what do we do in between launches kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just as important. So that is the second mindset. The ramp up is really where your trust is built. Moving into mindset shift number 3 is that open cart energy versus long time launch momentum. And that open cart is really should be the amplification of your launch and not the ignition. The fire should already be lit. People should already be converting. They should be ready to like jump on like right when I remember I had a client, she was really good about nurturing beforehand. And she would always do like some fun like box giveaway. It was like Taylor Swiftish vibes, kind of like limited release. If you were like the first like 30 people that got this, she would put together these like really cool goodie boxes that like her audience absolutely loved. And maybe like the first 30 people, the first 50, it would depend on how like much money we put into it. But it'd be so amazing to like I would sit there and I like turn on the sales page, like send out the email, turn it on, and then you would just see like the sales come in. But she
Yeah.
did such a good job at like nurturing people, building a relationship with them, letting them know like about the offer even before it's theirs so that they know it's ready. I think like, do you have any other like tactics on like how do you get people like ready to buy before you even open cart or buying before you even open cart?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that goes 100% towards knowing how to shift people into the right, like, awareness stage, and, like, honestly, knowing your ideal client like the back of your hand. Like, I have a few launches that I have behaved like that for, where I was just like, "Give me the checkout link already because I need to be in this," and that is something that, like, it's not easy to do, but it's also, like, not manufactured either. It is intentional momentum throughout that ramp up stage where you're giving behind the scenes, you're cluing people in, like, there's not this big, like, tease and hide and secret thing. It's transparency, it's, like, excitement, like, genuine, authentic, like, excitement, and really making sure that you're, like, bringing your audience through and building community with them so that when it's time for you to actually open the cart, like, they're ready. It's not and I personally and this may be controversial and just like, like, please come at me if you're like, "No, that is not the case." Where I don't love the whole hook them with the workshop and then tease the product at the end and then say, "Okay, now buy."
Mhm.
I really like the whole buildup of, like, hey, this is coming, this is coming, this is coming, and then sharing it with everybody instead of being like, you have seen this product for 5 minutes, now buy. Like
Yeah.
to me, I've never been a buyer that engages with that type of behavior, but
I think it goes back to, like, the tortoise and the hare buyers, like, you're going yeah, like, I think you're going to like, obviously, it goes back up to your ramp up content where you're starting with, like the further you're out, you're starting with, like, problem aware content and gradually moving to more solution aware and giving all the sneak peeks so that all those people that have been watching you for a while, and maybe they've been watching you since their last launch, they are ready. But because you're showing up a lot more, you're showing up with more intention, you are going to attract like newer buyers as well. And I think that's where webinars, masterclasses, all of that can be like a really good vehicle to quickly move the hair buyers from just discovering you to purchase that round. So I think it's always kind of like playing into the two different things. I do not like the webinars where it's just, I am a true believer like that your webinar should be like, they should like feel like they paid for it. You should be giving a lot of value because you want people to feel like, oh my gosh, if this is what she's giving me for free, then like, what am I going to get
Mhm.
in here? Or like laying out your like specific framework, like making sure your webinar, like one of the approaches that, I just actually was helping a client yesterday go through her webinar stuff. And it's right, really like laying out like, okay, we know what your problem is. And let me tell you like how I approach it differently than what you've tried before. And like, let me break down your steps. And then like her segue to her pitch is not like, and now if you buy this, like that sales thing, it's like, okay, you've got three choices now. You can, continue living with your symptoms. You could try to take everything I just taught you and go figure it out for your own. You could do that. Or you can come with me and do it with community and accountability. So like really giving that like that person that choice. And I think all the webinar is serving for is like making them feel more confident in their purchasing decision. It's not trying to like trick somebody or like bait and switch
Right.
anybody into what we're doing.
Totally. Yeah. I think it's really fascinating because like I'm a major tortoise. I sit in the tortoise lane for a year before I engage and buy and do all of that. And it's just really interesting to see, all of these different tactics. But I completely agree. You have to give space for both so that you can capture that. But then I'm sure we've talked about this in past launch episodes, but where that like like the open part sales window, there will always be that lull in the middle,
Mhm.
and you have to maintain that until you get to the end because you're gonna have the people that take action at the beginning. You're gonna have the, like, people that are still lurking in the middle, and then right when that urgency is, like, authentic and you're like, "No, actually, that cart is closing," then you have those people taking action again in the end. So, it really is, like, such different levels of, like, psychology at play in that open cart space. There's a
I
lot
love
of
that you
moving.
said that you're a hair buyer. I was like, what kind of buyer am I? And I feel like generally, like I'm an early adopter, like first person on ChatGPT, like I sign up for a new software service every week. But as far as like courses and programs and coaches, I feel like I have been burned before. So now I'm like a
Totally.
little more like hesitant and I sit there and like I watch a lot longer. Like Rachel probably knows there's
Mhm.
like two or three coaches that I've been like, talking
Yep.
about forever, and I'm like, "I think I might wanna work with them. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I like this approach, da, 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 da." So, like, I'm really, like, sitting there watching. One day I will spend my money with them, but I'm, like,
Right.
really, like, I wanna make sure, like, it's the right time for me. They hold my
Mhm.
values. They're gonna give me exactly what I need. So and maybe that's kind of, like, the case with everyone. Like, I mean, we say it's like a trust economy now. Maybe even the hair buyers are becoming a little more hesitant
I agree.
because of past experiences, because of what's going on in the economy right now, all of that. So I think that's why we talked about it before, like, trust is probably, like, the number one thing that you need to focus on during your launch.
Okay, so let's move into the last mindset of this launch episode. And that is really, I think, from the biggest thing that we can give you is to reverse engineer it if you want to avoid burnout. Start from the end and map everything backwards. Give yourself that space so that you're not trying to tackle whatever your like lead magnet hook is. You're not trying to tackle your sales emails. You're not trying to tackle this. Like, really give yourselves bite-sized opportunities to work into it. Because if you're feeling rushed and you're trying to balance, like, okay, I need to figure out what the hook is for this launch. And then I also need to write these sales emails and I also need to do this. Your copy is going to feel it, your everything's going to feel it, and it's just going to be so chaotic. And that's what leads to people burning out, is that they don't have things phased out so that you can properly give the energy to the pieces that need to be put in place, like all the way around.
Yeah. And I think another big key to burnout proofing your launches is like giving yourself permission to do like a 1.0 version of your launch and add a different element every time. And then you're doing a 2.0. As visionaries, we probably, when we get into like the launch strategy, we have all these ideas of different things that we can implement. But if you really have to do like a gut check and like, does my capacity, can I invest in somebody to help me with this? Like, do I have that budget? Like, getting like
Yeah.
really realistic with like your scope triangle that I've nerded out about, I think way back when we first started talking about, is like if your scope increases, you're either going to have to increase the money that you spend or the time that you devote. Because if you don't, everything's going to get crunched like up into it. And if you
Yeah.
want to, you decrease the time, then your scope needs to go down or your money needs to go up. So it's like really like judging your capacity, being honest with it, allowing yourself to do a 1.0 version and know that this is a thing that's going to improve over time. And I think that's another kind of like big disservice that the online launch industry coaching education space does, is like you will see a lot of courses that tell you to launch your first course and launch it this way. But so then you're not only building out a course, which that's like a giant undertaking in itself, but you're also planning this like huge launch and people are like, make $1 million in 14 days. And it's like, there's no that's absolutely going to happen. And my coaches, Jason, Caroline, Zook, they actually have like a program that helps you like launch your first course. And it's the 6 months. It's like build without burnout, launch your first course. And it is a 6 month ramp up period from creating the product to actually like getting it out to market. And if you're a solo entrepreneur, then that is a very realistic timeline.
I agree with that. Yep.
If it's a giant course. I mean, if it's a little bitty thing, you know, a little bitty like that, trying to like say like you're gonna fail. Like,
No,
just
I
own your
mean,
product.
I've taken probably like in like the new program I'm building, I've taken a good month to intentionally outline, to find the right time to record it, because my life is capped at, I'm
Yeah.
chasing my now 11-month-old that's running. He's literally walking and like running away from me. I'm chasing him in between nap times and dinner and all that stuff. Like, to sit down and actually like do all of this like with a real life, like with life, and not like be like, I'm gonna dedicate a 6-hour time block to this. Like, you have to be realistic. Like,
I
you gotta
mean,
be able to like
especially
crank
if you're
these things
shifting
out when
from
you can.
service to coaching to courses, like you have to be realistic. Like, how many hours like that's the key question to ask now is like, when I'm building out your launch plan, like how many hours do you have to devote to
Yeah.
working on this aspect of your business? Because I can build you a launch plan where you can get it done in 4 weeks, but that doesn't mean that it actually matches like what your reality
Is real.
actually
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, and I do like something you said earlier about like kind of just not building everything essentially like from scratch, and not like starting and like building out this entire course kind of thing, like from like the start. A lot of the things that are really impactful for people who have maybe never launched before is utilizing what you're already using. So a lot of the things that I'm putting into this new program are things that I'm currently utilizing in my own business, in my client's business. And, you know, like you had just said, like moving from retainer to courses or retainer to whatever coaching, you're going to have to like use the tools you have. Like, not everything needs to be created from scratch. And I think that that is key, where you can say like, hey, this works for me and this works for my clients. Let me record a 5-minute demo on how I use this. And that in itself is way more useful to somebody like me versus a 45-minute training on this and this and
Yeah.
this and this. Like, you really have to understand the mind of a service provider in order to understand how tools and courses can actually use. Because raise your hand if you have 10 plus courses in your course graveyard. Like, it's there. I'm not using them.
Probably
I'm not sitting there to watch a 45-minute video.
Probably more than that. Okay, so let's just do a quick little recap of like the four, I think we gave mindset shifts. So one, planning isn't a panic move. It is going to be your foundation for everything that happens to your launch. Two, the ramp up is where it's at. You can't skip it. That's where trust is built, is probably the most important part of your launch. Three, you really want to embrace the long-term launch momentum versus just open cart energy. So you don't want to just be showing up on open cart week. You need to be showing up the full time as you're going through your launch. And then burnout proof your launch. You need to reverse engineer with your sanity and your actual real life capacity in mind. And until next week, we're moving forward.